Hello again, and welcome to Making My Game with Words Here. That sound all official? Do you like that? Because I liked that. Probably say something like that after, every time after this, say, because then it'll sound all official. Whatever. Anyway, I was last time. I remember I went through and I looked at what I was doing before. I got all these attributes in, and I put in a number level, a little attribute, but that doesn't actually mean anything yet, and it probably won't for a while still. I'd like to get some of the other functions working. According to my game design document, speed is actually set by the class, and possibly probably a combination of race and class or something like that. So we don't have to worry about that. That would be an easy attribute to implement, but it's not actually going to be an attribute. It's not going to increase at all, which I think makes sense. It would be annoying to have really fast later level enemies, or even characters having to chase your own guys around, trying to herd them to your goals. But I'm still a little sick here. I don't know if you read the descriptions. I might have mentioned that I was sick for a while there, and so I'm a little late making this. I've been away, so I don't know if I can. I'm pretty sure I remember what I was doing though. So what I'd done already was make it so you can miss, make it so that they can crit when they do hit. So we have to go through the other attributes. Let's open up. Put it over here. There. Now there's a cat trying to get in. He won't come. He's gone. Okay. Let's see. Alright, so I've done accuracy, which is a chance to hit. I've done dodge, a chance not to be hit. I actually removed the offset for dodge just a minute ago. I don't know, it seemed like a kind of boring thing, but I will mention it because I don't know. That way I can have. It seems like you'd basically have a minimum for dodge, because if there was an offset and it subtracted from it and it became negative, I don't see how that would actually work out for you at all. This also means, the way it works, I've been thinking about it, and oh wait, actually the offset works for both, which is silly. See, oh, it does. It does an random from the range from the offset. What it ought to do is do your accuracy. I do need to change this completely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that, see, accuracy here, I'm going to make it so that it has basically each point is actually only worth so much. So it might round, something round, and then we'll take all that and we'll divide it by something. But I'm not going to do that yet, actually, because it really depends on how those stats end up working out. What I was thinking, the way it ought to work instead is, instead of saying a range, oops, I pressed home. Instead of a range, I just pressed the buttons I'm trying to press instead of other buttons, because those other buttons are dumb. Instead of having a range like that, I should do say 1 to your accuracy, and you have to beat their dodge with a roll like that, or possibly what I'd originally thought. I think I briefly might have considered this 1 to 20, like that, with plus just your accuracy. It really depends on how I want to do it. I'll have to think about that some more. I'm going to leave it like that for now. It's really more a discussion, which I could have right now. But for now, what I'd rather do is go ahead and go back and look at, not that, there you go, some of these, and see what else I could add. I could go ahead and add ranged weaponry, to an extent at least. I could say, but that would really more I'd have to set a toggle or something. There isn't any concept of items yet. Sneak, not really important. I haven't. Oh well, I could at least make it so that I could start working on making it so that they have a range of vision. Let's see, and that actually brings up those same problems I was having with turning. But I could make it so that another thing I'll have to think about. But if they have a range, like a cone of vision, I could the way sneak's supposed to work, it's only you don't select a sneak option. They actually just are. It's just not that they're constantly sneaking, but like they are constantly trying not to be detected, I suppose. So if you're out of the visual range of an enemy, or an enemy is anyway, you can go undetected as long as you roll a sneak higher than their sense, I suppose it would be. And they yeah, actually, what I could do, I could do a sort of a bell curve thing. Like with this, I could say like if I just do this, it's like there's just as equal of a chance that you'll get your accuracy. And obviously, like the higher your accuracy is, the more likely you are to beat their dodge, depending on what their dodge is. But the way it is like this, which might be fine. I don't know. I really have no idea. It all depends on, like what works best. See, but like the way it is right now, I don't like this, I don't think. Because the way it is, right, like this, you get, it might be too easy for things to end up being, like, impossible to hit a lot of the time. That's why I think, like, that's why you have to do that sort of thing. Like, say that accuracy, doesn't mean as much, or dodge doesn't mean as much. Like, each point of dodge might mean less than a point of accuracy, like, but I still want them to be comparable, So, like, that you can see. So instead of like changing it so that just instead of like trying to dick with how leveling works, so that dodge is less likely to be gotten, just to make it so that it stays low enough to do these calculations, I'll do that change here. I'll make it round this, and divide it by something. But it all depends on how it works out. There's I mean, it's all statistical. It's all right now. The arbitrary numbers that I put in to begin with are fine. So I should really just stick to working on making other things else work. And I was talking about sneak a second ago, and then I suddenly stopped because I'm weird like that. So let's say another way I could do it besides the cone, I could make it so that it's just if they're whoever they're not locked onto, they could have a chance of they could have that chance of not being able to notice and being snuck attack against. But that's kind of silly. I could have a timer, like so that if they, I don't know. For now, I think I'd rather just do the cone. So what I'll probably need is, wherever I can put it, let's just put it over here, let's call it view cone. This is how many degrees in size their view cone is. Let's say left and right. Well, a total of 30 degrees. Well, it should be maybe a little bigger. 20 degrees, let's say. We can implement this. What we'll have to do is we'll just say they'll have to actually look. See, this is why I'm kind of annoyed at how I changed this. I set it up so that there's no longer that full list of characters. There's only the list of teams, and that fixed something else. But it might cause problems in something like this, where what I need to deal to do, like there might be more than 2 teams. There might not just be like that's the reason I made it like a arrays like that, so that I could have the team for the player, the team for the enemies, and the team for like NPCs, different teams of enemies that might also attack each other, that sort of thing. And because that'd just be fun, to walk in to get a random encounter and run into a bunch of like in Oblivion, bandits fighting marauders that happened every once in a while. But if they'll have to actually go through each and every one of these lists and go through each and every person in those lists, but perhaps skip the list. I have to have an if statement, and I could skip the list of themselves and anyone that would be considered a teammate, which would be anybody on their team. But then also they might be not attacking other, like for instance, NPCs wouldn't want to check. It would be a waste of their time to check if your characters are sneaking against them, because they're not going to be attacking them. or to check if or for like, well, for different if they're not on the same team, then they're not on the same team. So I guess that's fine. Well, they have their team ID, so I think I'm gonna just go ahead and do that way. We'll have them do, as long as they're not dead and the game isn't paused. If an enemy, doesn't matter whether they're an enemy or not, I suppose. Needs to check if something is in their visual range. They also have like, and sense is going to affect, which I can go ahead and make it work. But this is also going to have to do with sense besides sneak, obviously, because sneak is checked against the sense of who you're trying to sneak against. But it sense also affects like the range of your I sound like an idiot sometimes, don't I? Sense also affects the range of your sight. So, or is it supposed to? I don't know if that'll happen in the end. We'll see. Depends. It could depend on the size of the rooms, like that the battles take place in. Because if they're not very big, it might not matter. If what your sense is, how far you can actually see. They'll probably be not particularly sizable. So I don't know. I was also going to I was thinking about making it so that it only affected your range of sight at night or in the dark. I'm not sure. Well, I'll go ahead and make this. I might pause it when I do this, unless I can. I find it really hard to talk and work at the same time sometimes. So I'm trying to talk and work, and I keep kind of switching between them. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pause it for a minute and work on this, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna talk up some more about what I'm doing. Okay, I've got the start of this. I want to go ahead and like I've said, I think better. I think when I speak out loud, and when I do, I might as well record it. So what I'm doing here, I'm trying to make it so that what I've got is it goes through the whole each of the lists of teams, each of the team lists, and if it's not your team, then it goes ahead and goes through each individual in that list. And what I'm going to have it do is it's going to have to do basically well, the same sort of directional check that it does with when trying to turn to look at someone, and see if they're within a cone of direction. So what it's going to have to do is it's going to take your direction, plus or minus the view cone, and also normalize the direction of that particular other character with their direction, and see if that ends up within that view cone. And I'm going to go ahead and look at the way that worked down here to figure out how it works. How it's going to work up there. So I've got this snap my dir thing that's going on. That's where it's actually at. So I'm going to have to check out of this. Okay, so this must be it. Get correct direction. Takes the direction to face, the direction currently facing. And if, depends on which one's smaller. And that was working, except for in certain cases, which might affect this as well. Oh, but the problem was with the fact that it was actually changing the direction, and this won't change the direction. Obviously, this is at their current direction test. So we'll have to. So I think that actually just using that same script might work. So I'm gonna pause it again and actually get to work on that, so that I can, and then I'll show you what I've done. But the basic idea is I think I've laid it out pretty well. So if they're in the view cone, then they'll be visible in spite of their sneak, is the theory. And also I might add the distance part too, although that'll be an interesting thing. I mean, I might have to set a minimum for it. We'll see. Okay, I'm having to think about exactly how it is that this worked before, because I'm having a hard time visualizing it again. Like if we have our guy that's trying to look, and he has, well, let's say, right, the first thing is if it's less, if the direction to face is less than or equal to the direction currently facing. So we have like that, so that's his cone, and that's that. That's his direction, that's his cone, and this guy is over here, so he's less. So what we'll do, if it subtracts it out, what will we end up with? Well, let's say this guy's at 45 and this guy's at, you know, I'm at maths, la la la, 135. So it'll say 135 minus 45, which would be 90, right? Duh. So, what does that mean? Zero, if, okay, so what we're doing is we're saying, like, the direction, what I've got, well, we can look at the code. I'm working on this script to, it'll return whether or not something is in the view cone. And what I'm trying to figure out is how get correct direction is going to actually get that correctly. So I'm basically doing that twice, once for the one side of the view cone and once for the other side, and I'm trying to figure out what numbers I'm going to get. I think it'll actually be, what I'm doing here is this is the subtraction part. What I'm looking at here is, like, if I'm looking at, this is subtracted part, like when it says is his direction minus the view cone, and this is the part where you're going to be saying, you know, his direction plus the view cone. So if we're looking at the plus the view cone, 0 would mean that he's right on the edge, and that, so if it's equal to 0, then that means that he's within the view cone, just barely. And I guess it would be if it's greater than that, because what you're going to end up with, if that's greater, and also if this is less than, then which doesn't make sense, it would have to be also greater. So I had to figure out, like, and then so what if the enemy is in that range? So what if he's at 100, and what if they're both at 135? So obviously, if we check their directions, you know, correctly, they were, you know, and he was actually facing him already, it would be 0 for the actual direction. But we are adding in the view cone of 20, so we're saying 135 plus 20 is 155 minus 135. Obviously, it's going to be 20. That makes sense. So we're going to have 20 for that. But then what about the other one? If we're adding, so we're also, that's for the adding part, so that would actually be this side. So if it's greater than, that's greater than 0, and then also if this is key, so that makes sense, yeah, because that's going to end up negative. Yeah, that would end up negative because I'm subtracting it out. Because it makes that's the only thing that makes sense, and we subtract out the 20, and then we subtract out 135, we get negative 20, but only if we do it that way. Now, see, and this is where that 0 starts to come into play as like a continuing menace for my attempts. This goddamn axis here is axis of evil is ruining everything, of course, because of the way this actually works. What we'll end up with, and I might have a solution for this, but what we'll end up with it, if I do it the way I'm thinking, I was originally thinking anyway, what it'll actually do is when this guy says 135 minus 20, and he ends up less, the one that it takes argument 1, the direction currently facing, and it's going to end up taking that and it's going to add 360, and then subtract out the 135 for the other guy, and we'll get 340. What I might have to do, one way I could do it is like then after I've gotten that number, before I do the test, I can subtract out 360 again, and end up with that negative 20. That seems to work. That works for this specific case, and you never know when something's going to end up like, you know, someplace around this is going to end up screwing something up. It's just, that's always what ends up happening. All the biggest bugs I've had so far, I've had to do with this sort of thing. So, Having said all that, I guess I'll pause it again, and I'll go ahead and get to work on it now that I know that I think that I know what I'm doing. All right. Oh, yeah. Well, this. Okay. What I've been doing here is kind of incorrect. The way it works, I could actually. What I shouldn't be doing is what I'm doing. I've got it so that it takes the view cone of the character viewing, and it does all that. It adds it in here. What I should do is I should normalize with that. So now the directions are normalized. I know that, right? But what I'm doing is I'm taking that, and I am. I could actually make that a lot simpler and easier to look at. Because if they're the same, I can say variable n for new direction, I suppose. Control X and say n equals that. So if n, and then we can say and n. Okay. What we're doing is, if their directions are equal, we're taking, this is the normalized direction, right? So what we're trying to figure out is, it has to be within a certain range, and that it's so simple. All I have to do is say, well, okay, now here's the thing. It might depend on where they are, again, like this, and it depends on how that equation works out. But like, if what I'm going to do is I'm going to normalize direction. So if they're both at 135, we'll end up with a 0. And I'll say if it's if I take if it's within, you know, if this becomes 0, then if it's within, you know, negative, if I say if it's, you know, greater than or equal to negative, you know, with the view cone, and less than or equal to positive than view cone, then we can then that means that it's in the view. But there is so many problems with that, because when you're into, you know, like, let's look at this guy again, like, or even worse, you know, this guy. If we say, or this, you know, whatever, so that it's easier. If we say that that guy's at 135, if he's looking at 135, and the guy that he's, you know, checking for is at another 90 degrees away at 225, then he's the one that's less, right? Direction 2 face is less, but when he isn't, when direction 2 face is bigger, like in this case, so where he's 45, it's this, but if, then, you know, that's the simpler one. But if it's bigger, if the direction 2 face is 225, and what I would end up with is a negative number, what it does is it instead says it adds 360 to that, and then subtracts from that his direction. Or whatever. Actually, I think it adds 360 to and subtracts out the direction or something like that. Anyway, point is it figures out his direction where this is 0. And that's not going to work, I don't think. Because if it's well, the problem is when it's in here, you know. If it's at 140, what I'll end up with is 355, which isn't going to be in that cone, even though it should be. So what I might have to do is ignore, I'd actually not use that script instead. Because the truth is, what I need to do is take that and just subtract out that, like that. Why is that not working? Oh, huh, why did I do that? Well, let's just undo all that. Whoops. There, got it back. Okay. I still need that part. so being minus that should be this minus that, actually. There. So now it normalizes it in this way. No matter which one's bigger, it always just subtracts. I'm not sure that will work around that 0 again. So let's see, like, oh, well, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? It worked for that because of various things. Like in this particular situation, we'd end up with, you know, 35 minus 140, and we'd end up with negative 5, and that would be within the cone. That's fine. But what if you're looking this way? Well, then you have, you know, you could normalize it. You could normalize it, try to anyway, and if this guy's at, you know, 10, and this guy's at 0, we'll get 0 minus 10, and that sort of works, but what if this guy's at 359, and this guy's at 10? Now we subtract out 10. I end up with 349. I mean, I don't think it really works, because that would have to be, it would be more like if oh, we get back into the quadrants, and actually I kept those actually. What I might do is instead, though, I think it might be more important to simply check to see if I can get the to see if the range falls around that 0, or more likely if the because if they're in the same quadrant, then it's fine. If they're both, that's a completely different problem, isn't it? I might be running out of time, actually. I'm not entirely sure. This has been a fairly uneventful episode. Let's see. I'm still trying to think this through, though. I really want to be able to do this. Maybe it's actually better the way it was working. Maybe you know, like however it actually fucking worked. There we go. I'll have to figure out a way to make that work, though. It might have been better the way I was originally planning on doing it. Let's see. I'm going to do some more calculations. I'm going to pause it for a minute so I can so when I wrap this up, I might actually be a little farther along than I am. Alright. Yeah. What I'm thinking now is, what I might do is say, consider this to be like 0/360 like it is when it's, you know, over here, and say that this is 360, and compare like the way I was originally going to do it. So I get, we'll just say N1, N2, like that. So we get this plus, oops, that view cone. So we get the view, so we're adding the view cone in the first one, and we're, let's say, subtracting it in the second, like this. And what we end up doing is, instead of saying, and I'm going to have to check this, we have N1 and we have N2 now. So if N1, which is the one where we add it, if what that ends up being is, I have to think about this again. So what we have is, in that case, at at this position, we have, this is 135 plus 20, and we're comparing that to the direction of let's say this guy is within the bounds first, so we can see, you know, how that works out. So if he's at 130, which would be within that, and to the left of the thing, we'll get, or actually that would be to the right, well, in any case, we'll take Alright, so 135. We'll get 20. Which would be what we're looking for, I think. Ah, see, yeah, I mean, that doesn't work. I don't think. This is actually quite the conundrum. I might stop this video, wrap it up, try to fix this a little more, and then start the next one once I think I have a solution. Which kind of leaves us on a cliffhanger, really, because I think this is going out on Friday. I still have to actually upload a video for today. This is Monday right now. Well, in any case, if you're really curious, I guess you could subscribe to find out what I do with this dumb thing I'm doing. And until next time, I'm gonna be screwing around with this some more.